Hi everyone. Hello. Hi. If you hear me, please wave or say hi so I know that you can hear me. Hi everyone. Dr. Amin here from Toronto. Another beautiful Wednesday. We're live here. So, talking all about our beautiful body, how it eliminates all the toxins that we're exposed to every day. So we're going live with Dr. Christine Smith today to talk about how to optimize naturally or with good support the body's ability to eliminate all those toxins and reset. So just I'm going to invite. Hi from Vancouver. Hi. Good to see you, Dinah or Deanna. Nice to meet you all. If you have any questions, you can always just put it in the comment or drop it in the question bubble, and we try to answer those questions. And it is an important topic. I agree, very important, especially in this today's life, in today's world, with so many toxins that our body is exposed to. Okay, so Christine, I'm hello.
Hello, good to see you.
Hi. Okay, lovely to see you, and thanks for coming today to our talk.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. I think this is an important topic for people to know and
Of
understand.
course, yes. So before we start and dive in, so do you mind to introduce yourself to everyone here?
Sure.
What you do?
Hello. Absolutely. Hello, I'm Dr. Christine Smith. I work out of Colorado. I am a functional medicine provider, and then my doctorate is in chiropractic. So I actually love that as I got trained in the vitalistic model, and it's really colored my influence in my functional medicine study. And I like to tell people I specialize in basically cellular injury recovery and teaching you really the cellular process of how your body actually goes through a healing cycle. I think a lot of people get caught partway through and then they never actually finish the cycle. That was an interesting
Oh,
technical glitch.
that's good. We're back.
But yeah, to just kind of reiterate, in functional medicine, I really like teaching people how their cells heal. And it's really relevant to what you wanted to discuss, which is things around detox and understanding how we process our hormones and understanding the concept of safe detox. Because I think there's a lot of trends to detox our body right now, which is needed and it's great. And I love that awareness is coming up around this. But there are a lot of nuances on how to do it safely and to protect yourself because you can detox too hard and actually create more problems. So overall, I like to do holistic care, and that means addressing the physical body. Are you dealing with any injuries? Addressing the chemical body. Are you dealing with nutritional deficits, or do you have toxins in your body? And addressing the mental, emotional body. And so with that, I do a lot of subconscious reprogramming work because if the signals from your brain aren't correct, it's going to make it very difficult for your body to follow suit.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I was just saying to everyone how important it is to work on detox. It's especially in this world, that today's world, our body is exposed constantly. Yeah, from water we drink, air we breathe, and even the food we eat, stress we carry. So all can weigh us down and lead to all those symptoms like brain fog, even stubborn weight gain and hormone imbalances, skin breakouts, all the symptoms. So, but the good news is our body has the ability to eliminate those toxins. That's what we're going to talk and main focus today, how to help and support our body to work naturally, optimize, and all nutrient supplements to support the body for elimination those toxins.
Definitely. And I love how you listed all of those symptoms because I think a lot of people think of them separately and think that
Mhm.
they're all from different things or that your organs operate by themselves one at a time because that's how our conventional medical system is trained. But that does not make any sense when you think about it. We are one ecosystem and one organism, and all of our organs interact, and all of your symptoms are tied to that entire system interacting.
Absolutely, it is. It's all linked. So first we can start with what are the symptoms that people have to look for? They think then their body is showing something, even the tiny symptoms that they can look for in their body.
Sure. Well, some of the first ways that your body speaks to you are the things that people write off all the time. So, headaches, or
Mhm.
fatigue, or feeling additional amounts of anxiety, or having trouble sleeping, or acne. Acne is like one of the greatest signs that your body is struggling with detox. And an antibiotic is not always the correct solution. It can help with symptoms, but it usually means that. Yes, it's coming from your gut and maybe some bacterial dysbiosis, but your gut is also responsible for detoxing things like hormones and toxins out of your body. And the gut needs to be healthy. And it needs to be healthier these days than it used to be in our grandparents' day because we deal with so many more chemical toxins in our environment. And it's just different. And our body is not designed to detoxify this. It's designed to detoxify bacteria and viruses and parasites and all of that. But we have not biologically evolved at the same rate that our society has evolved. And so now we are dealing with this overload.
This is very important thing that you brought up. So our body is not naturally designed to eliminate all these super bugs, super toxins. So so some of the symptoms you mentioned to look for, but what about so how body generally detox? What body does? Which organs are the most important? Or I mean, as you mentioned, all work together, they're all linked, but what are the main organs?
Sure. I mean, I guess essentially it would be your gut, your liver, and your kidneys for a
Mhm.
summary. But really, everything is involved, right? Like
Mhm.
even your heart, because it's moving your blood and it's moving your immune system around, and it's the flow and the highway for everything. And it's your tempo keeper and your rhythm keeper, and your adrenals are a component of this. And that is like the little hat that sits on top of your kidney, and it's a gland that emits your stress hormone, and it maintains your blood pressure, and it maintains your blood sugar. And if those are fatigued from, say, chronic infection, chronic stress, chronic toxin exposure, any of those can really defeat and derail the detoxification process because I like to think of your adrenals as like your reserve, right? Like your backup energy reserves. If that is completely depleted, the rest of your body isn't going to respond right. And if you're not producing your cortisol correctly, you're not going to manage your immune system correctly. And your immune system is part of what's responsible for clearing debris and moving stuff out. So they all kind of have different roles. But first and foremost, you have to get the gut working because the gut is how it leaves the body. So if you're constipated or your gut isn't functioning and you're unable to move those toxins through, the last thing you want to do is start up a heavy detox because it's going to put way too much burden on the liver and the kidneys. And we only get one of these organs, right? Like if you think about how much an organ transplant costs, you can think that like your heart costs like $60,000. You really only get one. And it's pretty hard to do like glandular transplant. So it really exists on this spectrum of stress. And when we talk about adrenal fatigue, right, people think of being all the way at the end where you're just completely kaput. But you can be partway to adrenal fatigue and your detox system and your immune system can be functioning at like 50% because you just don't have the resources. So it's like getting the gut in order, getting your rhythm in order, your circadian rhythm, your life cycle, your sleep, your water, your regular nourishment, so that you're not putting a bunch of stress on your blood sugar all the time. When our body is in a safe, regulated, resourced state, this is when the rest of our systems are going to work more effectively. So getting the adrenals running, getting the gut running, and then you can kind of start working with the immune system. And then after all these are up and running, that's when you can actually start to push a detox. But if you push a detox before those other systems are ready, it can be damaging to the body.
Mhm. So main organs, yeah, digestive, your gut, your liver. I always say even your skin is important, so important, the brain, sleep. So all of those are so important. Kidneys. So I thought maybe we come up with this case that a patient come to you with fatigue, complaining about fatigue and maybe some stubborn weight gain. So how's the approach? So if we're thinking about all these toxins and toxin overload, what do you normally do? What's the workup you normally do for this patient? Very
Depends
general,
on.
very open question, I know.
Sure, yeah. My answer is going to be it depends.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of variables. If someone called me on the phone and they said I'm struggling with fatigue, I'd ask them like 100 questions. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, practitioners, like really good practitioners, they're really good at asking you questions. And they're really good at asking you questions that you don't think to bring up, which is why the intake forms can be so long. But is there like an age of this client or a demographic? Because that
So
changes
in the
things.
40s, they're around the age that we're thinking about, especially with women in their hormone changes and perimenopause time. So that hormone imbalances as well. So that's around the age, I think, this case, imaginary case.
What are their symptoms?
So fatigue, the main thing is so tired, unrefreshed in the morning. Sleep is affected, impacted, not sleeping well as well, and stubborn weight gain. That nothing has changed, but diet is the same, physical activity, but just feeling very fatigued and tired all the time.
Okay, so since we're just kind of making this up as we go, let's kind of like play a game with this here. And I'll kind of tell you what my mind goes through, right? So you've come in, you are a woman in your 40s, it sounds like, and you're just like, oh, I'm just so tired all the time. Like I have no energy when I wake up. It doesn't matter how much I sleep. I don't sleep well. I've been trying to lose weight. I'm doing all the things. I've done the right diet, and I just feel terrible.
Mhm.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look right here at that person and I'm going to see if there's like a big dark kind of under eye right there. And that's going to tell me a lot about their adrenals. Next thing I'm going to do is a neuro exam. I'm going to start looking at their pupils. I'm going to look at how well their pupils can constrict. Can it hold that constriction? It tells me about their nervous system. If their pupil can't hold a constriction, that's another sign that their adrenals are fatigued. Most likely for this demographic, if it's a woman in her 40s, does she have children?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so
we
she
have
has
friends.
children. So she's a mom. So we also know that she's now running like multiple forms of stress in her life. And there was like a multiple year period where she didn't sleep, where her children were infants. And so usually after that time, like postpartum, I think goes on for years for people
Yes,
because of the whole like sleep
yes.
deprivation and stuff and the hormone transfer. And when you give birth, it's actually a massive injury to your body. And when you get a physical injury, you also get leaky gut. And a lot of people don't know that. So when your body goes through a physical injury, the way that your immune system actually heals it is it makes your tissues more permeable. So your immune cells can move around and go do their job. This also means your gut lining, and it also makes you more prone to inflammation, and it makes you more sensitive to the possibility of food sensitivities. So something like, say, dairy, a common irritant for people, you're like, oh, I can eat dairy sometimes. It's not that big a deal. But now all of a sudden, every time you eat it, you like don't feel well and you get kind of gassy and you have acne picking up and you have that like phlegm in your throat that you need to clear. That phlegm in your throat, that is an IgA immune reaction. That is your body responding immunologically to that food. So if you're in a time where you are depleted or you're recovering from an injury or birth or you're sleep deprived or you're stressed out or you have 3 toddlers and you're like running on zero fuel, this is a time where you actually need to be more careful with your diet because you are more susceptible to getting food sensitivities and leaky gut. And that in itself is like I have a hard time with diagnoses sometimes because a lot of the time diagnoses end in itis. And anything that ends in itis just means inflammation. And I don't find that to be a true diagnosis. And I couldn't say like, oh, your leaky gut is 100% the problem. It's probably your leaky gut and your sleep deprivation and your mental stress and your adrenal fatigue all combined, making your body not function as well. And so for that client, I'm going to start asking them questions. Well, what's going on in your life? I'm going to start asking them if they're emotionally stressed. That's a question on my intake form. If their emotional stress is at a 10, we're going to start with some of the subconscious work and working on the emotional stress so that their cells can get into a receptive state for nutrients. If you're too stressed out, your cells literally cannot absorb nutrients. And this is why people will take all the supplements, they'll eat all the right things, they'll do all the right stuff, and it just won't work. And it's because they're not absorbing it. And so with this person, like it depends. There's a lot of things going on, but I'd probably run a hormone lab and just take a look at their adrenals. Anytime there's like fatigue and exhaustion and nothing can really get over it, I always take a look at adrenals. Next thing, like if your adrenals are fatigued, I know you're dealing with some gut stuff. And so then I'm also probably going to look at a gut panel. And then my other favorite thing to do is to run a nutrient panel, because no matter what toxins are in the system, no matter what's going on in your gut, it's all going to come out the same way. And you still need the same nutrients to do it. So I'd rather look at a nutrient panel, see where you're depleted, and see how we can support you. And first and foremost, I'm going to suggest food as medicine, as Hippocrates said, and try to teach people what foods to reach for based on how you're feeling. If you're having like a really inflamed day and you're puffy and you have joint pain, maybe try some fish that day. Get some healthy fats and some fish oils in your diet. If you're like totally fatigued, maybe try some dark leafy greens and get some like B9 and folate in your diet, or some organ meat. But it's going to depend case by case, right? Because if this person is fatigued because they're living in a house with mold exposure, I'm probably not going to orient them towards histamine foods. And they may not be ready for roughage in their diet. They may actually need to do more of a carnivore diet for a little while. So this is where all the questions come in, because it's like, if they're like, I tried keto and it didn't work and my hair fell out, then I know that you're depleted and your mitochondria aren't functioning. So that was a very long-winded answer with a lot of information, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
That's good. In fact, this woman is complaining about bloating as well and some constipation. So we see some definitely elements of digestive and gut health problem dysbiosis. So I agree 100% for having that GI workup and stool tests to see what's going on there, for sure.
Sure. And when it comes to like, if she's telling me about constipation and bloating, then one of the next questions I'm going to ask is, when do you bloat? Do you bloat right after you eat? What did you eat? Or do you bloat like 2 hours after you eat? And that actually tells me where the issue is in the gut. And if it's 2 hours later, it's later in the gut. And it means that your ileum is probably affected. And it might mean that you have an issue absorbing B12. If it's earlier in the gut, it might mean that you have intestinal bacterial overgrowth, especially if it happens when you eat vegetables and things like Brussels sprouts and onions and garlic. And so I'll ask them about what they're eating and what causes their symptoms. And most of the time, people have no clue because they are so disconnected from their bodies. I saw this really funny meme the other day, and it was like, we're all wearing these like biohacking like measurement devices, and really it's just an expensive Tamagotchi, but the animal we're trying to keep alive is ourselves. And it made me laugh so hard because it's so true. It's like we literally have to wear a watch to be able to communicate with our bodies anymore because we've completely lost the art of listening to ourselves. Now, in people's defense, our world is a bit nuts and our society expects way too much from us. And we're evolutionarily not designed to live this way. So yeah, we might need biohacking to keep track of ourselves now. But I still advocate for people learning the language of their body and how to listen to themselves, because that's true health. And when you learn how to do that, you're going to be more successful than any doctor could help you with, because they're always going to be seeing you in pieces. Versus if you're seeing yourself every day, every moment of the day, and you're listening to those signs and signals in the moment of like, oh man, I am completely fatigued right now. Maybe I should rest. What a concept.
Yes. Or check my gadgets to see if I need to rest.
Yes, exactly.
I know, it's crazy. Someone is asking about tips for relieving bloating without constipation. So,
Sure. Once again, my answer is always it depends. And none of this is medical advice, right? This is all just education for you guys. And we always advocate that you speak with your provider. But again, my questions go to, well, when do you bloat? What do you eat when you're bloating? And if you're just bloated all the time, then like that's a person where I might check for parasites, and you might be worse during the full moon. And those are just kind of old school concepts of like parasites and their life cycles. And I find a lot of people will do big detoxes, or a lot of practitioners will work with trying to detox organisms, but they never study the life cycle of the organism that they're working on. And parasites have like a very specific life cycle, and bacteria do too. And same with candida. And candida is like a fungal overgrowth. So if you have crazy sugar cravings, and you have brain fog, and you have fatigue, and you have some skin issues, you might be looking for a little bit of candida, especially with the crazy uncontrollable sugar cravings. But the interesting thing about stuff like that is sometimes people will go on these big detox regimens, and they use these big antimicrobial protocols without really checking in with someone. And candida, it's an animal like anything else. Like if it gets attacked, its hackles are gonna rise, it's gonna get defensive. And if you go too hard after candida without doing the right process of like starving it and stuff, it actually goes into something called a hyphae form, and it grows little spikes, and it pokes holes through your intestines, and it can make you worse. So some people will be feeling crappy, and they're like, oh, I just want to be over this. And they take a huge dose of antimicrobials, and they piss off everything in their system. Instead, it's like a mangy dog that worked its way into your house. We have to like coax it gently out of the house and lovingly. And this is kind of what I help clients with, especially people who've dealt with mold and stuff like that. It's a very traumatizing thing to go through a health crisis like that. But I try to remind people like, hey, the universe is not out to get you. These microbes are not necessarily your enemy. This is the ecosystem that we live in, and your ecosystem is imbalanced because of some lifestyle choices. So let's see if we can balance out that ecosystem and have compassion for the animals that we share this planet with, and understand that they're going through their own process of just trying to survive too, even if it's inside of your gut. And so when we do that, then all of a sudden our nervous system goes, we don't feel like we're just, waiting to be eaten by the tiger. We realize that we actually have a good amount of control, and some of this is our responsibility, and it's not that we're just a victim being attacked. And I think when we can create that mindset, it really shifts the signals from the brain. And when we can get that stress down, fun fact for anybody who doesn't know, when you're stressed out and you produce cortisol and adrenaline, you have microbes and bacteria in your gut, like E. coli and Yersinia, that have receptors for those hormones. And when they receive adrenaline and cortisol, they grow. So when you're stressed out, you grow bad microbes in your gut. So your stress is also your responsibility in getting your gut health under control. And I know that's probably one of the toughest things, but this is where I encourage people to get into meditation and yoga and breath work and other subconscious tools so that we can really help with that. But overall, with the bloating, I guess the best piece of advice I can give is track what makes you bloat. Track how long it takes to make you bloat after you eat that thing. Track if it makes you bloat every single time, or only if you've had like a stressful day or something. And just start noticing and start becoming aware. And if something's making you bloat, stop eating it for a little while. Give yourself 90 days. It takes your immune system 90 days for that immunologic response to come down in your blood. So give yourself 90 days off that thing, and then slowly re-enter it, right? And when you do re-entry, that's the most important part. Most people enter into something that they call a diet, and they feel super restricted, and then they get in that victim mindset again, where like someone is controlling them and their doctor is restricting them. It's not the right mindset to do it with. This has to be a choice that you're making for yourself for the sake of your health, so that you can feel empowered and recognize that you're making these decisions. And then when you're doing that and you come back to reentry, instead of going from, oh, I've been totally restricted, I'm just going to binge, you go from, wow, this has been a really empowering experience of this choice that I've made. Let me make sure that I do my best to not mess it up on the exit. So when you do a reentry with foods, you can bring it in, you like test it one day, and then maybe you test it the second day, and then maybe you test it a third day, and you notice if on the second or third day you have a reaction. And if you have a reaction, you cut that food out again for another 90 days. And so that's just kind of the process, but people forget how important the reentry part is.
So we can try elimination diet the way you mentioned, which is slowly again reintroduce whatever is the culprit, or we think that's the culprit. So you mentioned about some of the tests you run for this lady, for this patient. So hormone checks, gut tests, and maybe some nutrient tests to begin with. And then any other special tests would you do with her? I mean, she has some problem with sleep. So she, of course, you mentioned about stress. She is very stressed with her teenagers, but she has poor sleeps as well. Sleep is a problem.
Sure. So sleep is hugely tied to your gut as well, because your
Mhm.
gut is a huge source of serotonin and inflammation. And we actually have what's called retrograde transport of the vagus nerve back to the brain. And there's theories around like stuff like Parkinson's and things like that being related to that. So adrenals and gut health are first and foremost, because if your cortisol rhythm is off, you're not going to produce your sleep neurotransmitters correctly. And this is the question that I'll ask people. I'll say, do you wake up tired and then you're not really hungry? And then around lunch, you get ravenous, and then you eat, and then you crash and you get really tired. And then you go home. And then in the evening, if you stay up past like 8 o'clock, you get a second wind. And then it's really hard to go to bed before midnight. And then sometimes you sleep through the night, or sometimes you wake up, usually around like 3 or 4 a.m., which is the detox hour in Chinese medicine. It lets me know the liver is backed up. This tells me that your adrenals are dysregulated and your circadian rhythm is dysregulated. And I chuckle a little bit about biohacking because I love it. It's great. But what are we trying to do, right? We're giving our eyes the right light. We're getting in cold water. We're sweating. This is all stuff that nature gives us. Basically, we're using biohacking to get back the rhythm our ancestors used to have because we live in a false environment. So if we can just start remembering that the best medicine is just like the natural cycle of the day, and maybe like when the sun goes down, you shouldn't be dealing with a lot of bright lights and blue screens, and just like keeping in mind that that's going to be one of the easiest ways to start to regulate yourself, and realizing that we do actually need like a bedtime ritual. And it is actually helpful to have a morning ritual. And that's actually what life is about. Life is about the time that we spend with ourselves, and how we invest in our lives, and how we have created like creativity, and we do things we enjoy, and we have social connection, and exploration of self. Like that can come in the form of a career, but if you're just operating where your whole life operates around your kids or your career, and you have no regard for your own self-care, that is not sustainable and it's not healthy.
No, it's not. I totally agree. So, so, apart from yoga, meditation, and stress reduction techniques, breathing techniques, so how other way to naturally we can reduce that stress and optimize our sleep, and also help with our hormone imbalances.
Sure. Well, so you asked me about if there's any other labs I would run. One of the other ones I do like is a food sensitivity test. However, they change over time. And that is the argument against them, is that they're not accurate because of that. I don't think it makes them inaccurate. I think it's a glimpse into what's happening in your body in time. And so that can be really interesting if you're like, oh, I don't know how to do an elimination diet. I don't have the patience for this. You can run a food sensitivity test and see what turns up. And I like to run IgG and complement factor. I think it's kind of silly to run IgE testing, which is like if you were going to have an anaphylactic shock reaction, like if
Yeah.
you're allergic to something like that.
Yeah.
So I rather run IgG, which is sensitivity, and complement factor, which people miss. It's talked about in the book The Angels, or Angels and the Assassin, and it's about how when you have high levels of complement factor in the brain, it literally starts deleting your neurons, deletes your neuronal synapses. So first thing I look at is there a food that's causing complement factor, which is like a extra immune response? And if there is, if there's 20 foods on the IgG list and there's 3 foods on the complement factor list, I say, okay, these 3 foods are out. Like you just have to cut them out. These 20 foods, like, if it's red, try to cut it out. If it's yellow, do it in moderation. And then we just check again in like 3 to 6 months. But But overall, I think I would rather teach people how to be in touch with their body and realize when they're having a symptom and having a reaction, because they're subtle. Our body whispers before it screams, and like nobody knows how to listen to the whispers anymore and how to respond to it. And that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, where it's like, if you're having an inflamed day, try to reach for this food over this food. And this all ends up affecting things like sleep, because when we start to regulate our inflammation and then we regulate our nervous system and our stress and our daily cycles, inevitably your sleep will get better. So it's mostly the accumulation of these things that causes the disruption. But I'm not just going to put someone on a bunch of melatonin and call it a solution. Like, that's not a solution. We have to figure out why you're not producing your melatonin correctly. And with all of this, I think, again, the most important thing that people can understand is the concept of allostatic load, the overall capacity your body has to handle stress. And I'm also going to advocate for therapy. I think it has like a weird stigma to it, or people are like, no, I'm fine. You only go to therapy if you have a problem. Talking to a therapist and finding one that you're congruent with, right? That's the key. You have to shop around until you find someone that you resonate with, but it can be incredibly helpful for releasing stress. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to that doesn't have the complex layers of your family and friends where you're asking them to play dual roles in your life. So sometimes just having someone to talk to can unload so much mental stress that you can actually sleep at night. And then we can start working with the rest of your chemistry, because again, the mental stress load always comes first for me, because if I try to give someone a bunch of nutrients, even if I've run all their labs, if they're completely stressed out, they're not going to absorb those nutrients. So we have to work on the stress component first, which also inevitably affects your sleep.
It is amazing how we can get into this vicious cycle if we not address everything at the right time. So I can easily miss and then just get into this cycle and not healing, not let our body to heal.
And sleep is incredibly important for healing, so we have to get that online.
Very important. Our body does mainly so many things when we're sleeping.
Well, I'll also throw in one more fun fact about sleep and stuff, and why the circadian rhythm component is so helpful. If you have dysregulated sleep-wake cycles, where it's like you don't go to bed at the same time, or you don't wake up at the same time, or you're like napping all the time to kind of make up for it. Like, actually, napping's okay, but like if it's making it so that you don't sleep until like midnight or 1 a.m., or it's dysregulated what time you go to bed, your body gets confused. And what are called clock genes get confused. And clock genes are responsible for signaling to your cells that it's time to repair. So if your clock is messed up, your body's clock is going to be messed up, and then it won't know when to repair, and you never really enter the repair cycle.
Yeah, I agree. And that we see again more in elderly senior patients, that they nap a lot during day and then they cannot sleep at night. We see that a lot. So what are the other natural ways to support our detox pathways, and as well as natural, what other recommendations you normally do to your patients with your apart from food, supplements, any other way to support?
Sure. I mean, since my doctorate is in a degree based on bodywork, I have them come in for bodywork. I think bodywork is greatly underused in our industry, and now that everybody's going virtual, it's getting lost more and more. And we are social creatures. Our nervous systems regulate through touch. Like, we can also regulate through meditation and other things, but we regulate through community, and especially through touch. If you think about, you know, when you're little and like someone that you cared about would like kind of scratch your back, like it would help you fall asleep. That's nervous system regulation. And so I like to have them come in for body work, because I think it's just missing from our healthcare system for the most part. And then the other piece is just, yeah, managing that stress. And, you know, meditation is a very broad word. It's like saying you like music or something. Like, there's so many different kinds of meditation. It can be a walking meditation. It can be a sitting meditation. It's more just about the amount of energy that you're using to focus on what you're doing. And it's coming back to yourself every time you get distracted. And that in itself is regulating for our nervous system. We are so dispersed in our thought processes and our mental power with all the things going on in our life that I encourage people to just literally pull the energy and like pull the thoughts back into your body and reclaim that energy for yourself. And then you can decide how you want to redistribute it afterwards. But if you have a regular practice of like calling back in all of that stuff that's dispersed everywhere, can be incredibly helpful for your system as a whole, just because you're getting your life force back to be able to conduct this symphony of chemistry that is your body. And then movement is one of the other big ones that we haven't even really talked about yet. And that's why I'm a big advocate of yoga, or even like walking 15 minutes twice a day. 30 minutes twice a day has been proven to be just as beneficial cardiovascularly as running. So just go for a walk twice a day. Just make that a regular practice and just build that into your life. It's probably one of the most important things you can do for yourself. Walking also stimulates our lymph flow, because our lymph, the thing that like drains all the toxins from the rest of your body, puts it into your bloodstream, goes through your liver, goes into your gut, and gets excreted out. Your lymph is powered by movement. It is a passive system. It has no pumps. Your muscles are the pumps, and especially in your calves. So thinking about walking, right? This is how we get all the stuff out of our legs. And so with this, if we can start doing regular movement, we can actually kind of get our sleep a little bit regulated. Now, it sounds like we're talking to a bunch of moms out there. So moms with toddlers, I feel you. I get it. Like, I know that you're sleep deprived, but just do your best to have some boundaries and ask for some support and some help so that you can recover when you need to, so that you can be the best mom to your kid. The whole like always putting your kid first to the point of your own detriment is going to lead to you not being the best parent for them. Like, you have to prioritize yourself in order to prioritize your child correctly. So just a reminder on that kind of stuff. And then the other one that we haven't talked about that's huge, drinking water. Everybody is chronically dehydrated, like permanently at this point, mostly because our agricultural system is so lacking in minerals anymore. And we can't, like, our grains are weird. They're genetically modified. They're not the same as they used to be. They're all processed. We don't get the silica from the husks of the grain anymore. So we're missing a lot of minerals that actually allow us to hydrate our cells. You can pound water all day, but if you're not remineralizing, you're not going to absorb it into your cells. And dehydration can lead to chronic fatigue very easily. And if you're completely dehydrated, you can be entered into a fight or flight response, and you can tank your adrenals because your cells go into a danger response from being dehydrated. We are mostly water. We are basically a big ocean. We need that in ourselves. So sleep, movement, water, nourishment, and breath. Those are really the five that I that I put out for people. And people forget the importance of breath. And most people breathe incorrectly. Most people breathe with their neck muscles and in their chest, and then they wonder why their neck is sore all the time. It's because a muscle the size of my finger is lifting your rib cage, instead of using your diaphragm, which is a belly breath, right? Coming all the way down here to the point where you're actually pushing your belly button out as you inhale. If you push your belly button out when you exhale, you're breathing backwards, and it's something to check into. And if you've been doing that for a long time, it's really hard to learn how to breathe correctly, because it's like learning how to walk again. But it's super important for the longevity of your health and your brain.
So very simple steps and measures, but so important, so crucial to follow those stuff. So your water, drinking water, your nutrition, sleep, stress reduction, and breathing.
I mean, just for the basics, right? Like, that's the thing that everybody is going to benefit from no matter what you're dealing with. Now, we can get more complicated and talk about supplements and stuff. But again, none of this is medical advice. Please check with your provider. But if you are going through some stage of detox, your gut has to be working. You have to be pooping every day, and you have to be pooping somewhat normally. And that's like first and foremost. And then we also kind of have to work with your liver. And there's like, I'm a pretty simple doc when it comes to supplements. Like, you'd be surprised. Like, the body's designed to heal. It just is. If you give it the right things in the right order, it will do that. But it depends on how far down the road someone is. If you're dealing with like chronic illness and chronic infection, you're a little bit of a different case, especially if you're like allergic to everything and a bunch of foods and you're sensitive to magnesium, which I've had people be sensitive to before. If you're in that stage, you need to work with a practitioner and you need to work with somebody who understands chronic illness and what they're doing, because you just need a little bit of nuances. And if you're at that stage, you don't tolerate blends well, is what I've found in practice. They just don't. Like, they're too complicated. People need like individual amino acids and individual B vitamins, and you might not even be ready for B vitamins yet. So there's this process that we have to go through, because one of the things that people don't understand about detox is the liver works in phases. Phase 3, and we go backwards in the phases to be safe, right? Phase 3 is the gut and moving things out. So think of it as like the garbage truck driving away. And then phase 2 is like the workers putting the garbage in the truck. You need the workers. And phase 1 is like putting your trash on the curb. If you put your trash on the curb before your workers are there or before the truck can come, it's just going to rot on the curb and it's going to damage everything around it. And you can actually damage your liver. So we need to make sure the gut's working. And then phase 2 is things like antioxidants and the amino acid glycine and taurine, right? Like, you can just do glycine. It's very simple. It's sweet. Even kids like it. It's like sweet in water. And it's one of the most widely used amino acids in the body. It is a recycler of glutathione. It helps repair all of your soft tissues. It is a GABA precursor in the brain, which means that it's calming. And it basically unclogs the drain of your liver and helps things move through. So that's like a really gentle one that a lot of people can ask their provider about and see if it's right for them. That's like a basic thing you can start with, so that phase 2 support. And then once phase 2 is running and you have enough antioxidants and you've cleared like the debris out of the street so that you can actually put more debris in the street, right? We have to clear the way before we move more stuff in. Then you can work with phase 1. And that's like heavy B vitamins and things like that. And it's funny because we also need B vitamins to get our mitochondria running. Mitochondria are like the engine of your cell and where a lot of energy comes from. It's what your thyroid works on. So everyone is always worried when they have, thyroid issues. Your thyroid's just a signal. You just got to go work on the factory that the thyroid signals to run, which is the mitochondria. But you can't like supercharge the mitochondria too soon, because if the factory itself is leaky, because when you get leaky gut, you can get leaky brain, leaky kidney, leaky mitochondria. Leaky just means like your body's struggling with some barrier issues. And I'll just throw this in there. If you are struggling with barrier issues in your body and you have done all of the right lifestyle and nutritional things, you might want to check in on the emotional barriers and boundaries in your life. And this is where we start to tie in holistic medicine and the concept of like Eastern medicine and emotions affecting organs and things like that. So if you're struggling with boundaries, check in on your boundaries. And with these, it's like we can't charge the mitochondria before it's repaired, but we have to give enough antioxidants to help it repair. And you have to be resourced enough that it can do that, which goes back to the adrenals, right? Your reserve gas tank. So to me, the body is like this thriving city, and your gut and your liver are like the chemical plant, and your adrenals are like your reserve energy plant, and your heart is like your rhythm keeper, and your lungs are actually part of your immune system, which people don't fully understand. Your bones are your immune factory. Your bones are part of your immune system. So when we start to have osteoporosis, your immune system actually gets affected. So that's why like all of these things are
And the
connected.
muscles. Don't forget the
Yes, your
muscles.
muscles are an endocrine organ, which is why movement is so important. They literally release signals that help your body repair when you go through movement.
It's just amazing. So that's again you walking. You mentioned about the movement and the walk. So important. It's
Yes.
amazing how these are working together.
So it's a complicated answer when we start to get into supplements, right?
Yes.
Because it's very different for everybody.
Mhm.
But in general, like if you just start tracking your food, that's like the best place that you can start, because everything starts in your gut and your adrenals. And if your adrenals are completely tanked, you're going to have a really hard time healing your gut. So if you're there, you need to rest. You need to like go on a retreat and take a break from your life. Easier said than done. I know. But even if you can create a retreat at home for yourself for like 3 days, or you just turn your phone off and you don't really talk to anybody and you just like have some time where you're actually resting and replenishing, and most importantly, you're giving your brain a break from thinking about your problems.
Mhm.
Like if there's anything that I've learned in trauma care, and trauma, that word can go a lot of different ways, but if there's anything that I've learned in care, it's that healing has so much more to do with remembering everything that your trauma made you forget. So instead of like diving into your trauma story and trying to figure it all out, which yes, processing emotions is important. That's why I refer to counselors. But overall, you need to spend a lot of time remembering the life that you want and remembering how you want to feel and remembering what peace and joy and rest and relaxation and relief feel like. Even if you're doing the fake it till you make it, like this is what meditation is for. You go in and you play around with that until you can bring that feeling up in your body. And if you don't know how, because you haven't been in touch with it in 20 years, think about somebody that you admire and imagine what it feels like when they're feeling that way and just pretend. Your brain and your body don't know the difference when you're pretending, if you're pretending really well. And this is why I was talking earlier about like the success of your meditation is based on how much energy you put into it and how much focus you have and how often you can come back when you get distracted. But if you can start playing with feeling these emotions of relief and health and happiness and relaxation and joy, those are chemistry. They're going to start to shift your chemistry by themselves. People who go to a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat for a week who have never meditated before have a different microbiome at the end of the week. And they've proven this with testing multiple, like thousands of times over. So your mental process will literally start to change your microbiome by itself. And then you start doing the food shifts, and then you start doing the sleep shifts and the circadian rhythm shifts, and realizing that running yourself into the ground isn't a solution and you're not going to heal while you're doing that. That I think is the most important foundational piece. And I even like, I designed a course to teach people how to do this, and it takes them through it in like 5 weeks of understanding your cellular healing cycle, because the cell has to go through a whole cycle to complete its healing. And a lot of people just get stuck in the inflammatory space. And I just saw someone say, what's my name? My name is Dr. Christine Smith, and you can just click on my name, and I'd love to have you follow. I'm always putting out other information. Or if you're interested in that course or you want some extra support at home, if you go to one of my posts and you comment the word vitality, it'll send you all the information on it. But I think learning those foundational pieces is more important than any supplement or any medication you can ever take.
Yes. So for someone who has never done meditation, how do you normally tell them to start? Is there any very easy way, simple way of explaining what to
Sure.
do to start with for someone who's new?
Absolutely. There are so many resources online. I think starting with guided meditation can sometimes be easier if you're brand new to it, because it'll just like help you come up with some creative ideas. Or if you want, I also on my website, I have some guided meditations that I've made for people. And I also have like a 45-minute discussion that's just talking about it and helping you to understand it more and the different types and helping you to really make it yours, so that you're not just feeling like you're following somebody else's words or something, but it's a way to like understand how to do visualization exercises and understanding how to do grounding exercises and understanding how to focus on gratitude or forgiveness. And like forgiveness is the emotion that has been shown to most quickly get the brain into an alpha brainwave state, which is a meditative state. So working with those emotions and feeling them is actually a way to meditate. But even just simply, I guess, like a very basic, simple one that you can start with is you're just sitting in your seat, you close your eyes, you take a deep breath, and you just feel your sit bones on your chair. And then all your thoughts are going to start coming up, because that's what they do, and it's normal. And the idea is that you just don't get into your thoughts. It's like sitting on the side of the highway and watching the cars pass and not getting into the car. Or another thing that you can do, I like to imagine that there's like a big drain down the back of my head. And every single time a thought comes up, it just goes down that slide and goes down the drain and goes out of my head. It'll come back. It's not going anywhere. I can find it when I need it. But in this moment, I'm making a choice to not engage with it. So every time it comes up, I say thank you. I let it drain down the back of my head. You can even let it drain down your feet. And then you imagine your energy like going down into the earth, all the way to the earth's core center, this like warm, glowing orb that is filled with energy that will never run out. And you just sit there and you just let your energy contact that. And anything that's coming into your head that you need to let go of, you just drain it down into the earth and you let the earth hold it for you. And then if you need some energy when you're coming out, you pull energy back up from the center of the earth into your body and you wait until you feel that energy spread through all of your cells. Yes, a lot of this is in your imagination, but your imagination creates chemistry. So even if it's imaginary, you're still doing it, but it's about the amount of focus and intention that you're doing it with. But that little one that I just shared with you, it's basically a grounding exercise. That can take you 5 minutes. You can do it at the end of the day to dump all the thoughts out of your head, or you can write them down on a pad and know what you need to do tomorrow, which actually relieves decision-making fatigue and gives you more dopamine back if you have a plan for the next day. And that comes from someone who's a business owner, because you do reach something called decision making fatigue. And this goes for moms as well. Like if you can just write down all the stuff that you need to do, that in itself can help you sleep. And so then just start making this a practice at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, even if it's 5 minutes. Then once you get good at 5 minutes, increase it to 10 minutes. Then once you get good at 10 minutes, increase it to 15. And by the time you're getting there, you'll probably start getting curious about what else you can do. Then that's when you look for people on YouTube or whatever. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza has tons of free meditations on YouTube. I love him. You can check him out. He has a book called Becoming Supernatural if you want to understand this stuff more from like an epigenetic level. But even on my website, which is just Depth Wellness, DEPTH there's some meditations on there under the resources section. You can check those out. But just starting somewhere, even if it's just sitting in silence and feeling your heartbeat for 5 minutes and just trying to focus on it.
Exactly, because as we said, it's so important. One of the ways of detoxification is to go through this and reduce the stress. Can you, the last thing is to mention a little bit, I was checking your Instagram about that sober psychedelics. So what do you do? Is this your program, or
Sure.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic. It's a friend of mine. He runs something in Denver called the Denver Zen Den. And I think these concepts are starting to spread, but it creates like a psychedelic experience is just something that shifts our perspective. And it doesn't always have to be medicine based, right? So what he does is it's basically a system that creates vibration through your whole body to a specific kind of music that has specific frequencies and rhythms. So it's kind of like frequency medicine through vibration. And then it even uses what's called like a hypnagogic light. So it uses a strobe light that goes at certain frequencies that reset receptors in your eyes and in your neurons. And when your eyes are closed, it kind of creates what's called neural artwork for your brain. And it's almost like seeing a kind of like a psychedelic kaleidoscope type of thing. So when you're in this state, it creates something called sensory flooding. And it depends on where the body's at. You know, if you do it and your body's finding it irritating, then you might do better with a float tank. But if you're in it and it creates this sensory flooding where your body gets distracted from your thoughts to the point where you actually sink into an alpha brainwave state, your body's always going to prioritize sensation over anything else. Our sensory neurons, the pathways that run them, are much thicker than any of the other pathways. So our body is always aware of our environment. If we can create this sensory flooding, inevitably it starts to overtake whatever else is going on in the brain to the point where your brain kind of quiets and you're just experiencing the sensory experience. And when you can actually get your brain to kind of shut down and reboot like that, that is the change in perspective. And the way that he does it, he does like a little bit of a ceremony beforehand and helps people with their intentions and makes it a little bit more of an intentional journey. And I think intention is one of the most important things of everything. And that's like the first week in the course that I teach people is, well, what's your intention? Like, what does healing even look like for you? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about what it would be like if you were healthy and like what your life would be like and how that would feel in detail? Like, what do you do during the day? How do you walk? How do you talk? How do you interact? Are you laughing more? What are you eating? How do you feel in your body? Like, you have to work out those details so you have some kind of roadmap of what you're going to. And then you can create these experiences that help a reboot. And, you know, the sober psychedelics is one. So that's Denver Zen Den for anyone who's interested in that. In my office through body work, I do different but similar things based on like touch mechanisms. And it's a certain type of rhythmic and repetitive touch that stimulates the brain in a way where it kind of does that same reboot. And I'll use it for people where they're so disconnected from their bodies. I know they're not going to absorb their nutrients because they're so stressed out. So it's like we'll do the physical stress release first so that their cells can actually open. Because the other piece of your cells being open is not just nutrients coming in, but toxins going out. If you really want to detox, your cells have to be open. You can't detox in a completely stressed out state because your cells hold all the toxins inside. So that vibration as well is kind of cool because it can stimulate lymph flow and different things. So if I have clients and they're at a phase where they're ready for a reset, but they need something gentle, but they need to get things moving, like that can be a cool thing, especially with the vibration.
Very interesting. But this has to be in person and not virtual.
It is a sensory experience, yes, just like any other psychedelic. And there's a lot of movement on the psychedelic front, and I think they can be incredibly promising and incredibly helpful. I also think the most important piece is working with the right facilitator. So I'm going to encourage people that if you're ever considering that, to make sure that you really research and are congruent with the person you're going to be doing that with. And to me, the most important part is not the experience itself, but the integration afterwards. So if you're working with a facilitator, I really want you to make sure that you have someone that you're doing an integration with sober afterwards. Even if you're doing the sober psychedelic thing, it can be interesting to have an integration period. And for me, if I work with clients and we're rebooting their nervous system, I always have a follow-up with them and I'm always checking in on them. So just know that if you're looking for some kind of deep transformation like that, the transformation is really in the integration afterwards.
Very good. Someone asked about if I save, definitely I will save this video and send it on Instagram so you can again watch it. And if you have any questions, you can always contact Dr. Christine. So it was lovely having you here today.
Thank
It's
you.
great. So if you don't mind to give us some, again, your website or details, I have you on my Instagram, so people who are from my side definitely can follow you from the website or from my Insta.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for anyone who's interested, I'm always posting stuff. There's lots of little clips of just little details. I even just did one the other day about infrared sauna, which we didn't even get to the sauna component of detox.
Yes.
Yep. So sauna can be great, but again, it's about right timing in your detox phases, and because it is something that pushes detox a little bit. So you just have to make sure that you're ready to catch that and support it. But overall, feel free to check out those short videos. And then if you want something longer, you can also check out my website. It's just depth, DEPTH, wellness.com, like you have depth. And then my name, Dr. Christine Smith, is what you can follow on social media. You can just click my name and hit follow. I always really appreciate it. It helps small business. And if you want to explore more, if you're on one of my reels on my page, you can type either the words heal better, which will give you a free webinar that kind of talks about stuff that we've been discussing. Or if you're curious about that course I was talking about and you want to have a little more structure at home, you can go on any of my posts and just comment the word vitality, and it will send you the information on that as well. And that'll take you to my website and all of that. So I hope this was helpful for anyone listening, and just know that healing is both more complex, yet also way simpler than we think.
Yeah, that's very true. And definitely we will have more talks hopefully in the near future together so we can learn more.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for inviting me on. It was a pleasure to talk to you and your audience. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to message either of us.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Christine. It was great meeting you and hopefully see you in person.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you as well.
Everyone for being here. Bye-bye. Bye.